Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the We're Having a Good Time podcast. My name's Dusty Slay. I'm your host, and I'm here in a new room. I don't want to go so far as to call it a new studio, but it is a new room. I'm in a new room in a new house. We've moved, and it's been a hassle. We hired movers. There's things I'd like to talk about the movers. They were very good, but there's a thing I want to talk about the movers. I don't know how to talk about it without seeming like I'm talking bad about them. But because I'm not talking bad about them, but it's a particular situation. I went on a little bit of a rant on Twitter about it. Not a rant so much as it was a few tweets. So I want to get into some stuff. I took some notes on my phone for podcast topics that I want to talk about, and then I couldn't find them. I don't know what happened to the notes. But I wanted to do a podcast. It's been a little bit. I've done a lot of things. I don't even remember when the last time I did a podcast was, but I've put out a Netflix. I think I talked about that. I think I've already done that. I talked about Wet Heat. It's out. So that's fun. I've been to New York City. I did a couple of podcasts, and then I flew out to LA. Maybe that's it. I did New York City and then flew to LA, and I did the podcast before going to LA. So I went to LA. I did some fun podcasts there, a couple at the Comedy Store. I did a show at the Comedy Store, which was fun. I never headlined at the Comedy Store before. I've talked about it before. I have a live podcast taping of the We're Having a Good Time podcast that I did with my wife at the Comedy Store. That's available on YouTube. I've done the belly room and I've done the main room, but I did the main room as part of a showcase where I tripped. I didn't fall, but I tripped on the way out. So I had 5 minutes. I had to open the show cold, and then I tripped. But it went good. And this time I headlined, though. I did my own show. I had a few of my friends on the show, and it was really great. Brittany Ross, Gene Whitney, and Willie Simon were my friends that I had on the show. There was another guy, and I don't mean to never mention him, but, I picked those other three people for the show, and then this guy was just on it. So, and I wasn't upset about it, but I don't know him, and I don't remember his name, but I think he did a good job. I couldn't watch. It's tough to watch the show these days. But I've been doing a lot of shows. I just got back from Milwaukee and Madison, Wisconsin. I talked a little bit about Milwaukee on the Nateland podcast. And I don't know that I saw any comments about it, but the guys on there seemed to react some kind of way to me talking about it. I feel like sometimes as comics, there is this thing where either you're like the kind of comic that's like hard about trashing a city, like you'll come at them hard, like Tom Segura trashed a whole state. He hates Louisiana. That's the only one I can really think of right offhand where people are just like really coming hard for a city. And then there are comics that never want to criticize any place because they're worried about whatever. You're worried about offending people, hurting people's feelings. And I don't like hurting people's feelings. I'm not into that sort of stuff. I don't like that kind of comedy. I feel like with my own comedy, I try to not include anyone that is being made fun of. Now, I have... on my hour that's on YouTube, I'm talking about my mom. I'm talking about, I can't remember, maybe some sisters. So I'll hit some stuff. And then I know on Wet Heat, I have a big joke about my sister smoking while she's pregnant. But I feel like, there may be truth in all of them. In fact, there is truth in all of them, but they are just jokes. And I don't feel like and they all seem to like it when I do those jokes. But I do, but I was in Milwaukee And I feel like every time I talk about Milwaukee, I have to run through my history with Milwaukee. I don't know why I feel it necessary. There's so many cities that I've been to, for a long time. But I think what makes Milwaukee special to me is that, I went from, I was living in Charleston, South Carolina. I was living... Charleston is a special place. When you live in Charleston, you almost think you're better than everyone. I went from living in a trailer park to moving to Charleston, South Carolina, going through some tremendous growing pains, only to come out, 10 years later out of Charleston, kind of feeling like I'm better than everyone, if that makes sense. I mean, because I never felt like that about myself, but I'm like, Charleston's great. The food is great. The people are great. The coffee's great. When I used to drink, the beer was great. It's, you can go to Folly Beach or Sullivan's Island or Isle of Palms. It's just wonderful. I would go vacation with people after living in Charleston, and I would just think, why would I ever vacation when the place that I live is better than the vacation spot? That's how it always felt in Charleston. It always felt that way. And so I lived there for 10 years, and then I moved to Nashville. I'm living in an attic apartment at this point. And which wasn't really a downgrade, so to speak, because Nashville's also great. And I was living in a pretty crappy apartment, even though it was downtown. It was still pretty crappy. But now, now I'm living in an attic apartment and I'm working the road. I've taken a new path in life. And I won a competition at the Charleston Comedy Zone. Not the Charleston, the Charlotte Comedy Zone. I won a competition there. I believe it was Fight Night with Debbie Millwater, where we had 3 minutes, and you would drive to Charlotte. My first round in Charlotte, I was still living in Charleston, so it was about a 3 or 4 hour drive, I think. And yeah, but still a pretty good drive to do 3 minutes. So I did 3 minutes and I got third place, which third was enough to advance you into the final round. And I was a little sick when I went up there, and I still got third, and I was a little sick. So when I went back for the finals, I was not sick, and I won first place. And then the reward for that, I don't think it was money. The prize was a feature weekend. So they would give you a feature weekend. I actually think the prize was a hosting weekend, but they felt like I could feature, so they bumped it up to a feature weekend for me. And then shortly after that, before I ever got my prize for the feature weekend, I won another competition at the Charlotte Comedy Zone called Almost Famous with Blair Nias. And I won that one, and the prize for that one was also a feature weekend. So my first feature weekend. Now, all right, so I'm fresh to this road thing, and I'm winning competitions, right? I'm feeling good. I had already won the Charleston competition, and now I'm up in Charlotte. I'm winning competitions there. I'm just painting a picture here. Things are looking pretty good, right? I'm off to the races really with this comedy thing. It feels good. Like, I'm coming out of Charleston. I got a different look going on. My hair, I'm not really slicking back anymore, but it's still a shortcut. I looked like basically how I looked on the Making That Fudge album. I had a guy on a Reddit thread show that picture of me, and he said, this is what Dusty used to look like before he created this character. Seeing how I am now, this is a character. And I responded to the guy. I said, no, that was the character. This is who I am, right? I just feel like I gotten back to more of my roots. When I lived in Charleston, I took on a bit more of a hipster vibe. Now I got new glasses. I may be going back to it. But I had taken on a little bit of a hipster vibe after I quit drinking. I lost a lot of weight. I was wearing skinny jeans and skinny T-shirts and slicking back my hair. And I felt like a real greaser, you know? But I was I kind of looked like that. My hair was growing out a bit, but it was still a pretty clean cut look. And so I'm winning competitions. So my first feature weekend I get is at the Charlotte Comedy Zone. They don't give me a hotel, but fortunately I had a friend that lives in Charlotte, and she let me stay at her house so I could do the weekend. So my first weekend was featuring for Josh Blue. My first official feature weekend was for Josh Blue at the Charlotte Comedy Zone. Now, the Charlotte Comedy Zone is a great club, and I had already won 2 competitions there. I felt good about it, and that weekend was a slam dunk. It was a huge success, and I was like, man, I may be king of comedy in no time, is how my mind was working. I thought, this is beautiful. This is all wonderful. And then my next feature weekend for the Comedy Zone, my next reward was doing another one in North Carolina, but more towards the East Coast. And I don't remember what it was. I would have to look it up, but I don't remember it. And I do remember going there. I featured for a guy named Kurt Green, who was a funny guy, nice guy. I've never seen him again, but his name was Kurt Green, and he played guitar. He was a guitar comic, did some pretty amazing things on guitar. I think I think he should have just been a guitar player. He's a funny guy, but he's also good at guitar. And the weekend did not sell well. And I struggled all weekend, but it was a nice hotel, and the club itself was fairly nice. And then I remember even the club weekend went so bad, I was getting paid $270 plus a hotel for the weekend. This is 4 shows. I'm making $270, and they're giving me a hotel. But the hotel was nice, but very little money for 4 shows. And I remember the owners of this club kind of sitting down with me and going, well, we didn't do very well this weekend. And it was like they were pitching it to me like I was in charge of tickets. I'm like, hey, I'm the opening act. My name's not even on the building. Not that it would matter if it was, but it's not. And I did share it for my, probably at that time, 400 followers on Instagram. And so that's got nothing to do with me. So they paid me, which was good. And then, I was done with my rewards from the Comedy Zone. But now at this point, things had gone well enough to where I felt like they were now working me into their regular circuit. I would send them avails, something I tell comics to do all the time. Very few people listen to me. Very few people can handle the patience, persistence, and politeness that it takes to continue to email clubs month after month with no response. It's hard to do. You email a club, and for whatever reason, we feel like, even when I tell people, I go, they're not going to email you back. They email and they go, I just can't handle it, man. These clubs, they're so rude. They never email me back. I go, yeah, I told you they were never going to email you back. Don't expect them to email you back. Just send the email, and one day, if you keep doing it every month, they will respond, or they won't, and it doesn't matter. But are you trying to do comedy or are you not? So I kept doing it. I stayed on it, and I got a feature weekend in Milwaukee at a Comedy Zone there. It was run by a Comedy Zone, booked by Comedy Zone, but it was called Joker's Comedy Club. And I had never been to Milwaukee. I had not even been to the north very much. I think at that point I had maybe taken one trip maybe one or two trips. No, at least two, maybe three trips to New York City. And then, I drove every time at that point to New York City. So I had seen the states that I would pass through on my way there, but very unfamiliar. The North, the Midwest, a whole new thing for me. It was unbelievable. I was so excited about it. I remember I drove up and I went to Indianapolis. I went to Crackers Comedy Club in Indianapolis, and I did a guest spot at that club to hope to get booked. So I drove 4 hours up to Indianapolis, and I was on Tinder. I was not dating Hannah or married her at all, and I was on Tinder. And I met a girl on Tinder, but I went and I did my guest spot, and it was very good. Had a hot set, and I don't know if I got a booking out of it on the spot, but I did end up getting a booking at Crackers, and Crackers would be a club I would go on to do for a long time. But I stayed with my friend Vince Fabra's friend. He let me stay. I think his name was Taylor. He let me stay on his couch. His couch was a little too small, and he didn't have a lot of furniture at all, but his couch was a little too small, and I think it was a little cold. And I had my own sleeping bag, and I slept on the couch, and I got up the next morning, and I went to breakfast with this girl that I had met on Tinder. And we had breakfast, and I tried to talk her into going to Milwaukee with me. She refused to go. I almost got her, though. I was very close to getting her to go, but she didn't do it. And so I drove up to Milwaukee, and I'd never been to Milwaukee. I remember after I passed Chicago, or maybe before, but I think it was after, I was on the interstate, and there was these huge windmills on the side of the interstate. I'd never seen anything like that. And I was like, wow, that is incredible. I've learned now they're probably pretty useless and very deadly to the birds. That's what I've learned since then. But at the time, I was like, wow, these things are fascinating. So I drive up to Milwaukee, and I pass through it, and I don't really think anything about the city, I don't think. And at the time, I don't even know if I saw much of the downtown. But I went to North Milwaukee, and I just went right to the hotel. And it was a beautiful day, and I was having such a good time. But as I started to get into Milwaukee, it got cloudy, it got rainy. And I pulled into this hotel, and I'm going to try and have these videos included with this podcast. So if you're watching it, you'll be able to see the hotel. Now, I want you to keep in mind that the hotel is more run down now than it used to be. But it was pretty sketchy back then. So hopefully, if you're watching, you're seeing videos that I took recently of the hotel that I had to stay at. Now, I wanted to give you all this backstory so you understand that it's been a smooth ride for me up until this point. The gigs, some of them have been great. Some have been so-so. I've slept on some people's couches and whatnot. But as far as my hotel situation had been going, it was a smooth ride. I was like, comedy's a cakewalk. I feel good. I don't know what people complain about. But I checked into this hotel. It was a little rainy. I walked in. It was probably like a Night's Inn or something like that at the time. And I checked in, and when I walked into that lobby, it looked like a bunch of homeless people in there. And I told some of this on the Nateland podcast, and I think Brian Bates said, you look like a homeless guy. And yeah, people have confused me for a homeless guy, no question. But I feel like there is a thing where you're like, okay, this guy could be homeless if you saw me on the street. But if you saw me in a hotel lobby, you go, that guy's probably staying here. When I walked into that lobby, I go, I don't think any of these people are staying here. And the guy behind the front desk, a young black guy, was laughing a little bit. And I like to think that he was laughing because there was something going on in the lobby that day, and he was thinking, wow, this must be weird for this guy. I don't know. But the kind of laugh he had, it felt like he was almost a little embarrassed of how the lobby looked. And then I check in, I get checked in, and I go up to my room, and I'm on like the second floor. I walk down the hall, and my door looks like it's been broken into many times. It's like the door was going down, and then as you got around the lock and the handle, it just looked like it was just wore out from repeatedly being broken into. But it looked like it had been repaired and freshly painted over. So it's almost like the hotel was like, listen, we've had some issues, but we're in the clear. And I put that sleeping bag on the bed. I got in the sleeping bag and I just laid there wondering what I was going to do. This was another $270 weekend. And so there was no way I was going to be able to buy a hotel and still make any money. I was barely making money anyway. I had to drive all the way to Milwaukee, pay for my gas, pay a bunch of tolls coming through Chicago. But I just was like, I can't imagine how I'm going to come back here tonight. And I got on couch surfing, and I started looking up stuff on couch surfing, trying to find people. And I did find some people, and they were like, well, our couch is full, but you can come hang out with us tomorrow. So I was like, okay, well, I will do that. But I don't know what I'll do tonight. So I get to the club. I drive to the club, and I also have video of the club nowadays. And the club was right next to a Harley Davidson store, which seems cool. But it was the building complex itself was half of it was a kind of like a sports bar. And then the other half was a strip club called Silk. And then there was a canopy, and that canopy would lead you to a stairway that went downstairs, and the comedy club was Joker's underneath the strip club Silk. And I went back recently, and Silk has taken over the entire upstairs. The sports bar is gone. It's all Silk now, and underneath seems to be some kind of country rock bar. So that seems pretty interesting, but it looks pretty terrible. But honestly, the club itself doesn't look much different from the outside than it did back then. The businesses have changed, but it all looks about the same. And I just drove around that area a little bit, and I go, this is not a good area. Very, very run down. But then I went downtown to my club. I stayed at a very nice hotel. And this is what I talked about on Nateland recently, is that Milwaukee, it seems like that there was a time where that was like a golden city. I'm not saying it's a bad city now, but what I'm saying is it seems like it was a top-of-the-line city. I've not looked up the history. Maybe it was. But the architecture is unbelievable. They have some of the most beautiful buildings I've seen. The hotel I was in was it's like one of those where that thing in the 70s was like the height of luxury, you would think. But now, and it's clear that it was built well because it looks like the hotel looked like it still looked very good, but looked like it had not been well maintained. I don't know if that makes sense. Like it wasn't falling apart. That's how good it seems to be constructed, but it didn't seem to have the beauty that it probably once had. And then I go out on the street and I'm walking around with Connor, and there's a guy on the street, and he keeps talking about mental health to us. And he's got an accent. He's foreign, and he just keeps saying like mental health. And I don't know why Connor's talking to him, because I've learned, as much as I I want to treat everybody like human beings, because everybody is human beings, and I want to talk to them. I want to go, yeah, hey, I'm sorry that you're out here on the street. I'm sorry that you're in this struggle. What can I do to help you? But the guy kept going, mental health. And I'm like, you just got to keep walking, because there's nothing I can do, right? Sometimes in certain situations, you can hand somebody a little food, you can give them a little money, but I don't like doing that sort of stuff on the street, because I feel like from my car, I'll hand people things, but I don't like doing it from the street. And this guy kept going, mental health, and Connor was like, I don't know what you're saying. And the guy goes like, mental health center or whatever, and we really legitimately did not know. And then he goes, that's why I want to kill all the white people on this street. And we were like, whoa. And he goes, I'm asking you for help. And we were like, whoa. And then he started like walking our direction, and we picked up the pace a bit. And I was like, man, we have just been outside of the hotel for about 5 minutes. The rest of the walk was good. We enjoyed the rest of the walk. And we walked down to the Pabst. That's the theater I was at. And the Pabst was very nice. It was a beautiful theater. The show was awesome. I had a great time. Connor Larson did the show with me. My friend Abe Auer was there. I never know how to pronounce his last name, but Abe Auer. And he was there. He's from Appleton, Wisconsin. And Connor had great shows. We did that, and then the night before we did Madison, Wisconsin, which Madison is really great. I mean, I don't know. Madison has an amazing courthouse. But it doesn't feel like Madison has the old big architecture like Milwaukee has, but it still feels, because, there's a college there, it still feels, pretty modern and fairly safe, I would imagine. I didn't feel weird out at night. We hung out at a cigar bar on the street. I have been doing cigars a little bit again. I took a long break, and I've not done very many of them at all, but I did one in Madison, and then I had one last night after my show at Zany's. And it feels good. It always does. It's nice to have a nice break. And I do want to, not dive back into them the way I was, but, man, it is good. There's nothing like a post-show cigar, I'll tell you that. Had my little Zany's hangout last night. Really good. I told myself I wasn't going to talk about it. The Zany's after show hangout got a little out of control, where it would be quite a few people, and then it feels like a party more than it does just a real chill vibe. We had a real chill vibe last night, which was nice. But the weekend was good. Prior to that, I don't want this whole podcast to just be about my weekends, but I guess that was more of a Milwaukee tip. Oh, so just to complete the full journey of Milwaukee, though, the reason I wanted to go back is because the Pabst is a big deal. I was doing the Pabst Theater, and a lot of people talked to me about the Pabst Theater. I did Adam Carolla's podcast/radio show, and he filmed his special at the Pabst. Everybody talked about it, and so for me to do that, I did Joker's 3 times. I featured there 3 different times. I stayed at the hotel twice, and then the last time it was a different hotel, thankfully. And then I did a casino called Potawatomi, and then the last 2 times I've been there, I did Brookfield. I did the Milwaukee Improv, which was great. But I just feel like Milwaukee kind of has a bit of a something special for me, because I can really see my progress in comedy over the last 10 years by the shows I've done in Milwaukee. So I appreciate everybody that came to that show. I appreciate everybody that came to Madison. Madison doesn't have the same type of thing for me, because I went there in 2015 and opened for a comic named Cameron Esposito. Had a great weekend, got 1 million emails. I went back about 6 months to a year later, emailed all those people, telling them to come to my show, and I did a show for 4 people. So this time it was, many more than 4 people. So it feels good. The progress has been made, but I think I burned myself with the booker at the comedy club in Madison, Wisconsin. Comedy on State is the club. Really great club. Really great club. I've always wanted to do it again. And I don't know that I burned my bridge there, but this is what I did. I'll tell you what I did. I never tell people this, but I'll tell it because I told it to some people the other night after I just said I never tell people. I mean, I don't tell a lot of people this, but I had done Comedy Club on State, and then I did that gig for 4 people, and the booker asked me, he had me over to close out the open mic that night after I did comedy for 4 people, and that was really great. And then he emailed me one time about booking me to feature, and I go, yeah, I'd love to, and he goes, how about these dates? And those dates I wasn't able to do because I had not long ago, and I don't know what year this was, but you may know because you may know the year that some of these events occurred, but I met Ralphie May at Zany's. I was fairly new to Nashville, and I was, the one of the owners of the club said Ralphie was going to be playing, and he said, you should come by and watch Ralphie. And I said, okay. And I came, and it was me and 2 other comics, Ambrose Jones from Memphis, and I think Ron Mosley from Nashville. I think it was us 3. And Ralphie sent the opener out to the crowd. He goes, go see if there are any funny people here that want to jump on the show. So we all said yeah. So we all did a set. It was really great. And then we got to hang with Ralphie a little bit back in the back in the green room. And it was fun. And I got to meet Ralphie. I got to hang with Ralphie a little bit. And, some time had gone by, and I had gotten offered to do a couple of shows with Ralphie. I was going to go on the tour bus with him and go out. So the booker for Comedy on State said, hey, do you want to do feature this week? And I go, oh, no, I can't. I'm opening for Ralphie May. And he goes, oh, cool. And I was, I only met Ralphie a few times. Ralphie was always very nice to me, and I know Ralphie was very special to a lot of people. So I want to be sensitive about this, but I also want to be honest about what happened, right? This guy goes, you want to do the club? I go, no, I can't. I'm opening for Ralphie May this weekend. And I was very excited about it. And then that week, Ralphie May passed away. And so the booker, I didn't send the booker an email, right? The booker goes, hey, really sorry to hear about Ralphie. And maybe I should have did 2 emails. But I go, yeah, me too. It is a real bummer. He's a very nice guy. And then I go, I might have did a different paragraph. But I go, but I am open this weekend now if you still need me. And then he never responded, and I never heard from him again. But I'm like, I always felt like, that's probably a little insensitive in a way. But, as a comic, especially where I was at that time, I needed money, and I was sad. I was bummed. But I was like, I still need to work. I still need to make money. All that to say, that's my story of Madison and how I potentially ruined my relationship with the booker of Comedy on State by being insensitive. But I have a joke that I'm doing right now about this. I have a bit of an insensitivity to death. I don't know if I've had friends that die. It makes me sad. But I don't know. There's something weird in me, but I just react differently to it. I have one friend that died. I have a few. I had a guy that just died recently that I went to high school with that I think about. But I have one friend named Clint Knorr. He was a comic, and around about the time that I was starting my journey in comedy, and I won the competition at the Charlotte Comedy Zone. Clint was living in Charlotte, and we were we were buddies and we were riding around together and stuff. And he died right at the beginning of COVID. And I think about Clint a lot. And that does make me sad. But often, and I don't know, maybe I'm just not close with a lot of people that, I don't know, it doesn't hit me in the way. And who knows? I mean, there are family members that I have that, will die one day, that are older than me. So hopefully before me that, I'm sure that will make me very sad. But I don't know. It's just like when you wait tables, right? And like when I worked at Hyman's, we would have these sections. Like if you had your section on Saturday night, that was always your section. Every Saturday when you came in, you didn't have to wonder where you were going to be because this is your section. That's how it worked. So the people that had worked there for a really long time would have the best sections. And so when you heard about somebody quitting, they would be like, hey, I'm quitting. And you'd been working with them for a year or two and you go, oh man, I really hate to hear that you're quitting. I will miss you. Do you mind if I get your shifts? Because you could pass them down to people. And it's like really quickly, it's like, that's so sad that you're leaving, but you have a good section. Can I have it? And, that's how it would work. But I want to talk about the movers. Because I hired movers this time. Now, the last time I moved from my apartment to my house, in 2019, I moved from my apartment to my house, and I hired movers then. These guys were very shady. I worried that they would just show up later and steal my stuff. They were very sketchy. I remember I was paying them by the hour, and they took a lunch break and then tried to charge me for the lunch break. And they didn't even work a full day. And I'm like, I get it. If you want to eat, man, you eat. I'm not trying to keep you from eating. I'm not in such a rush. But he told me, he was like, because we had that lunch, we went into a new block of time. So we'll have to charge you for that time too. I got them to not do it. But it's like having to deal with that. And it's like, so then people move you. They know where you live. They know what kind of stuff you have. And then, not that I have anything that valuable anyway, but they know what kind of stuff you have. And now you've seemingly ripped them off by not charging them, not paying them for that extra block of time. So that's, so that's not what I wanted to do. But this is the first time that I had ever completely inhabited a house. Like I've lived with people, I've lived in houses, I've had my own apartment maybe once. And me and Hannah had our own apartment twice. But this was the only time I'd ever completely inhabited a house, moving myself, my wife, my kids. And it's a lot of work. I mean, we're not done. I had a whole garden thing going in the back. I'm still moving. I went over there today. I made one trip. And, I wasn't there a long time, but I just emptied a section. But we're very close to being done. And then we're going to try to sell the house. We are going to sell the house. So that will be nice, but as for now, we're doing a little bit of both. So I wanted to hire movers. So my real estate agent had a company. He said they are the Chick-fil-A of movers. And they were amazing. They brought a 4-man crew. They were very nice guys. We talked, we laughed, we have a good time. They moved a bunch of stuff. I have a sauna that they were able to move with just straps. 2 guys carried it off the truck with these straps that they just have. And it's unbelievable. And they were the best. And my friend, when I lived in Charleston, my friend used to be a mover. And he would talk about how hard it was. And he would talk about what people would tip. And he would tell me when people gave him a certain amount of money and he felt like that was a good tip. And then he would say other people wouldn't tip. So I'm like, I feel like I don't know the amount of money to tip, but I feel like I'm savvy in the sense that I'm like, yeah, no, I need to tip. I need to tip, even though they're getting an hourly wage or they're getting some kind of wage. I don't know what the wage is, but I feel like I should tip. But I didn't have, the kind of cash on me that I wanted to give to them. So I said to the guy, I go, you'll probably send me a bill. He goes, oh no, we'll be able to take care of it right here. We'll have a iPad and a Square reader and we'll be able to take care of it. And I go, oh, cool. And I go, well, what about if I want to tip you guys? He goes, oh yeah, there'll be an option for that. So it was 4 guys. And I'm not, I don't want to talk about price with it, but, I was a little shocked by how much it cost. But I mean, I'm in my 40s now. I don't have the kind of friends anymore. I have 1 or 2, but I don't have the kind of friends really to move all this stuff. My back hurts. I don't want to be moving all that stuff. So it was worth it to me. I would have never got the sauna out of there. I don't want to take the sauna apart. I'm still moving, and my wife moved things for a week while I'm on the road. I'm in New York City doing podcasts. My wife's moving stuff. And then we hired movers, and now I'm still moving things. So I never would get the move done if I had to do it myself. So it was worth it to me. But I had in my mind what I wanted to tip them, and I thought, oh, this will be great. I'll give them this, and they'll all be very happy with it. And so when I swipe my card, and then just like we're at, Starbucks or whatever, it pops up a tip option, and then it starts breaking it down into percentages. And then there's a custom tip button, but they have 20% listed. And I'm like, I don't know what to tip these guys, but, and then, 20% was a little bit more than what I wanted to tip them, what I had in mind that I wanted to tip him. It was only a little bit more, but it was the lowest. They had like 20, 25, 30, and this was the lowest one. So now it becomes this thing where now they know I tip the lowest on the percentage thing. So now I'm like, all this time I'm like, oh, I'm going to tip them and I'm going to feel good about it. I'm going to feel like I did them a service. But now I tipped, and because I tipped the lowest one, now I almost feel like I didn't do them right. Like I could have not tipped at all. Tipping is not mandatory. But because I tipped the lowest one, and then the guy went back over to my house, we had to put a door back on where they had to take it off to get a piece of furniture out. And I was talking to him about it. I go, hey, and I don't know why I do this, but I always do this with tipping things where I don't understand, because I waited tables, so I understand what's expected. And so I go, yeah, hey, I never hired movers, so I didn't really know what to tip. And these guys could not have been nicer. And the guy goes, oh yeah, that was good, man. That's average. What people tip, that's average. And then I go, oh, average. So I'm not, and I just, and it's all fine, right? I'm not really complaining, but it did send me on a larger thing of what tipping has become, where it's like, I didn't leave feeling good. Like, the reason I wanted to give them a tip was because I felt like they did a good job. And now I feel bad about myself, but I don't want to tip them, so much more to feel good about myself. But, the thing about it is, the guys, I don't know if they knew who I was in the beginning, but I got stuff that with my name on it in my house, even though I tried to clear out most of the pictures and stuff that I had hanging out with, like posters and stuff. I tried to clear all that out. There's still things, but maybe they just knew me from Netflix, My Netflix had just come out, so maybe they just knew me. But by the end, we're talking about comedy. So it's like now these guys know who I am. And now I'm like, oh, man, I don't want to seem cheap. I don't want them to be like, oh, this guy moved me. Because everybody thinks you're rich if you have a Netflix special. And I'm not criticizing what Netflix pays, but I'll say that not everybody gets the Dave Chappelle money. You know, not everybody gets the Dave Chappelle views either. But, you know, I'm doing okay. But I'm just saying, I think that people have this perception. They go, oh, this guy's on Netflix and he's tipping like that. And I'm like, listen, I don't know what to tip you. I just want to feel good. Now, none of these guys could be feeling that way. Every one of those guys could be like, that was a great experience. We like that guy, because I would help. Part of it is, you know, I am on the clock with them. So it's like, if it takes them longer, I pay more money. So I help. But I also have a hard time just standing around while other people do things and I don't do anything. As long as I'm not doing comedy, I have a rule that I won't help on show night, right? If I'm at a club and I'm doing a show and somebody's taking out the trash or something, I don't do anything. It just feels like a rule with me. I'm not going to help you carry in the chairs. I don't mean I won't hold the door, but I'm not going to help you carry in chairs to set up. Do you know what I mean? And it's not anything other than I'm like, I'm here to do a thing and I need, you know, that's the thing I need to be doing. During COVID, I did a show in the backyard for my neighbor. He had people buy tickets and a guy pulled up. I was in the front yard kind of running through my set because it was during COVID. I had not done comedy in it several weeks. And this guy pulls up and he goes, can you help me carry this cooler? I go, nah, I can't do it. And I think the guy was real irritated with me, but I'm like, nah, I'm here to do a different thing. I'm not on cooler duty, guy. But I just started thinking about that with tipping, right? Then I went to the airport the next day and I got a coffee and I just get black coffee. And, you know, it's like $3 or I don't know, at the airport, it's probably $5. No, this is what it was. I got a coffee and a water. So it was like $11. So a 20% tip, you know, we're looking at another $2 or $3, depending on what it actually did cost me. And then I hit the button and then, you know, there's no even thank you from the person. I'm not saying they were rude to me, but there was no real thank you. And it's like, if we want to make the argument that I'm tipping on the service, then I'm tipping on them turning around and filling up the coffee and handing it back to me. The water I got myself, and the water was the most expensive part. But now I'm tipping, and this money, hopefully it's going to the employees and not the company. I don't know where it goes, but this money's all being funneled somewhere. And I don't even get a thank you. And I'm like, it's just got me to this place where I'm like, man, I waited tables and I used to run. I would work a double shift sometimes and between my legs would be so chafed I could barely walk. And then the last table of the night is always the worst table. They come in, they're the rudest, they run you around for everything. And my legs are so raw. It's destroying my life. And, you know, and sometimes you get no tip. And it's just like to know that I'm tipping basically what I would get tipped sometimes for a coffee. I mean, because somebody could come in and get lunch and get a sandwich and a water and it'd be $10. And that's what I'm paying for coffee and a water at the airport. And I'm tipping what I would get tipped, and I was being paid $2 an hour and running all over the place. And, you know, it's like with bartenders, I had a lot of bartender friends, but that always irritated me a little bit too, because bartenders are making so much money. Now, you know, some places are really hustling, other places, you know, it's kind of a la-di-da kind of job, but I feel like there is an incentive with tipping the bartender. My thing when I would go out drinking, if I knew I was going to drink in a place for a while and I was going to start a tab, what I would do was I would pay for my first drink in cash. That way, and then I would tip really well. That way the bartender would know that I was into tipping. And then I would open a bar tab. And then I felt like I would get heavier pours, which is exactly what I needed. That's what a blackout alcoholic needs, is heavier pours. But that's what I live for. I live for a heavy pour. And so I would get that because, you work the system a little bit. And so there's some incentive to that. I'm not going to get a fuller coffee. I'm not going to get a fuller, colder water. And I just feel like tipping everywhere now. I did a car wash. This was a couple of years ago. But I did a car wash, and I'm at the machine to push the buttons, and the guy working there comes over and helps me push the buttons, and then there's a tip option. That's the only time I ever go, tip? For what? Who's this tip going to? And that's the thing, right? It's now become everybody's getting an hourly wage, and then we're all supposed to tip. And I want to tip, right? Because the Lord has blessed me. I am in a good place financially, and I want to share it. I want to, when people do things for me, I want to tip them. I want to say, hey, thank you for what you did here. I appreciate this. The cable guy came over, and they had never had AT&T fiber at this house. So the guy had to go out and hang a line on the pole. It was almost 100 degrees. He was sweating. He had to drill holes outside of the house to run a line in. I know he's being paid, but I tipped him. You know what, though? The guy was like, he goes, oh, man, you don't have to do that. I go, no, I appreciate it. And then he took it and he said, thank you. I have great internet here now. And that feels good because I don't think everybody's tipping the cable guy. That feels good, and I like that. But everybody's tipping the coffee person. And yeah, it's just $1, but $2. But it's not even the matter of the money. It's just that this thing just goes on and on and on. And where does it end? I mean, I knew people at a restaurant I worked at one time. They told me they would do things to people's food. The bartenders also ran the takeout. I worked several places. I'm not saying what place this was. But they told me they would do things to the food if they had repeat takeout customers that never tipped. So if I go get takeout, now I always tip. Especially if it's going to be a place I'm going to be going to a lot, always tip. Tipping at a restaurant is how you keep your food from getting spit in. But it's just everywhere. And it's just a tip. That's what they say. They've always said that. It's just a tip. Okay. Sometimes my comedy's getting a little dirtier sometimes, but I don't want it to be dirtier. I don't want to be a dirty comic. But what I want to be is the kind of comic that nobody tells me what I can say. That's why I want to do this podcast always ad-free. I have a new idea for a different type of thing. Now that I got a little space and I got a little room to move, I'm going to try to get, I'm going to do this I'm going to continue to do this podcast, but I'm going to try to get a co-host for a different type of, video thing, just kind of designed for the internet. Because I want to mix it up. I want to mix up the content a little bit. My video, if you've not watched my video, it's on all platforms. My breakdown of Hard Working Man by Brooks and Dunn, that did very well, and it bumped up a lot of my numbers on my socials. I hate that I have to worry about this. I hate that I have to worry about pushing social media. It's at Dusty Slay, by the way. I hate that I have to do that, but it is a thing. And so I'm going to try to diversify my content out here a little bit so that I can mix it up. And but I want to do this podcast, and I always want an ad-free podcast because, I don't like Mountain Dew, and I don't want Mountain Dew telling me what I can say about Mountain Dew, If the podcast lives, there is restraints, and I don't plan on getting too wild, but I want to talk about things. I want to make fun of things. I feel like the problem with a lot of comics now is comics are celebrities. I'm just a regular dude who's had success in stand-up comedy and getting my comedy onto Netflix. I have a good manager and a good agent. But there's so much I don't like, because almost everything you do in every other aspect, there's somebody telling you what to do. They're telling you how to do it, how to write it, how to say it, how to look. And I don't like that stuff. I don't like that stuff at all. That's not why I got into this. I mean, I used to be, I was always a nice person, but I was pretty rambunctious and pretty say what you feel kind of guy. And I didn't mind cussing somebody out. And I really, I take my Christianity more serious now, and I don't want to be like that. But I do want to say what I want to say. I mean, it's like this. I feel like we're in a real, not everybody, we're breaking out of it a little bit, but in a bit of a sterile type environment. And I have always believed that, I always tell comics this, and when comics do my show, I feel like this. I feel like there's, people think there's two types of comedy. They think there's clean comedy, and then they think there's everything else in the world that you could ever say. And I think there's an in-between. And that's where I want to live, where I go, my comedy is relatively clean. It's not for kids. I don't do comedy for kids. I hear kids show up to these shows at theaters. If you bring your kids, that's fine. I don't think my show is going to ruin their life. But, I want to be free to say what I want to say. And, but I don't want to take it too far. I want my comedy to be comedy that you can enjoy with your, friends and, relatives and parents. I want you to be able to watch it and laugh about it without hearing just the worst things. Because I make that joke on Monday nights at Zany's. Nate now runs a showcase every week called Nateland Presents. I think that's what it's called, Nateland the Showcase. It's one of those names. And then also on Monday, on the other side of Zany's at the big room is what they call New Material Monday. And so the Nateland Showcase is completely clean. It's very clean. A lot of my jokes would be too dirty for that showcase. Even though they're not dirty, they would be too dirty for that because it's ultra clean. And then New Material Monday is wide open. So I say to people sometimes, I go, on one half of the club, you go and you hear, very nice comedy, very funny, but very nice comedy. And then you could go next door and someone could say something that might ruin your life, right? If you thought you were going to Nateland and that's what my brother-in-law just was here and he told a story. He came to see me at an open mic when I first moved to Nashville. And he said, my brother-in-law works for a Christian-owned company and he was up here with some corporate people in Nashville. And he thought that I was taking him to a comedy club. I said, do you want to go to an open mic with me? And I guess he thought comedy club. So he came and he took those corporate people, very Christian people. And this open mic was about as bad as it gets. I mean, very funny people, but they're just saying the wildest stuff. And I think it rocked some of those people's world. And I think some people could stand to be a little shook up, It's a wild world out here. But that's why I like, a bit of a middle of the road comedy. I've said before, probably even on this podcast, that my comedy is not dirty, not clean, but dusty, right? Because that's my name. I like saying that sometimes, but I can't dive into it too hard. But that's what I ask of comics when they work with me. I go, you don't have to be squeaky clean. We're not doing a church. We're not doing a corporate event. But, don't have, people questioning their morals for even attending the show on the way home. And because there's comedy like that I like too. I mean, there's some people, Neil Hamburger, he doesn't have a lot of albums. Neil Hamburger has an album called Hot February Night. I know I've talked about it on here, but man, that's one of my favorites. It's pretty dirty, but it's one of my favorites. I just love the guy. I always tell people, though, I always recommend, I say, if you've never seen or heard Neil Hamburger before you go listen to that album, it's important that you go watch a video of him. That way you see what he looks like and you see what he's doing. He's a character, and he's kind of doing an anti-comedy character, which I love. I love dry humor. I love that Ricky Gervais, when he hosted the Oscars and he roasted everybody. That's one of my favorite videos to watch. I love that. It's so funny. Ricky Gervais in The Office is very funny. I love that kind of comedy. I love dry comedy. Todd Barry, very funny. Early Jim Gaffigan. I only say early because I've not listened to anything. I don't listen to a lot of comedy now, but early Jim Gaffigan was really good. Demetri Martin, his first album, really good. Mitch Hedberg, all of his stuff is great. Stephen Wright, I think he was probably a precursor to Mitch Hedberg, but I like the Mitch Hedberg, what he does better. But, there's a lot of good stuff out there. I don't know. I don't know if I covered any of the things I wanted to talk about. I know I covered tipping, but I lost my, here's some stuff. I'm not going to talk about that because I'll save it for another time, but I don't know. You know how, here's some. Okay, well, I had 2 podcast ideas, and one of them was to talk about Milwaukee. So I did that for a while. But I do think the thing about Milwaukee is a lot of that is industry left, right? Because it happened to a lot of southern cities too. Opelika, where I grew up, they used to have several mills. I can't say it. Mills. I think they had textile mills. Where my dad lives in Lafayette, they used to have cotton mills, and they all just went away one day, and so then nobody had any jobs, and then people leave the cities, and then they fall apart. Opelika is doing good. Opelika's on the up and up, and Lafayette, they are trying to do some stuff. My friend is working on reviving some things, but I just think the big thing is there's no industry, right? So if there's no industry, then there's no jobs, and then there's no reason for people to stay around. And that, I think that's happening in a lot of places in the country, and it's too bad. But listen, I'm pumped, guys. I wanted to tell you where I was going to be this weekend at the beginning of the podcast, but you know what? I'll do it now. This weekend, I'm going to be in Prestonburg, Kentucky, and then Princeton, West Virginia. That's where I'm going to be. I don't believe I've been to any of these places, but I'm pumped about it. I've been to Kentucky, and I've been to West Virginia, and I like them both, and I can't wait. I am going to be driving, though. I could not find good flights. And in Prestonburg, I couldn't even find a hotel. I had to get an Airbnb. But it's going to be good. And on Monday, I don't know when it'll air, so I probably shouldn't even advertise it. Maybe it advertises that night. But Monday, I'm going to do Kill Tony. So I'm going to fly to Austin and do Kill Tony. That offer has been on the table for me to do it for a while, but I worry that the show's not the right format for me. That is the show where I should be able to say anything I want to say, that's for sure. But the thing about saying anything you want to say is like, well, you're not just saying it on that show. It's not like hanging out with certain friends where you go, well, when I hang out with these guys, I say whatever I want to say. You know what I mean? It's like other people here. But I don't want to say anything wild. It's not that I want to say wild things. I just want to be able to say what I want to say. I don't like people telling me not to say things. Do you know what I mean? I think that makes sense. I think everybody's on board with that. But, I also did, since I've done this podcast, I did Atlanta and I did Huntsville, Alabama. And those places, I've been going there for a long time too. They're special places to me. I could probably do a similar, journey through Atlanta the way I have Milwaukee, except there was never a Joker's that I did in Atlanta, and that's the difference. Atlanta has been a special city for me with comedy for sure. And Huntsville, I've always had a good time. But I'm from Alabama, and also it wasn't like I journeyed into the North. It's like at one time Huntsville probably was the North to me because it's north of Opelika. But hey, I think this was great. I really enjoyed this. I'm happy to be back. So, and I also like that I've done this because what I want to do is, I'm going to be figuring out what I want to do with the studio space. This is not it. This is not going to be the look. I am going to keep the chair, most likely. This is my old chair. Still got the same mic. Mic's on the different side. I don't know if you can tell that. But I am in my spot, and it feels good. So, thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you. We're having a good time.